Mike.
I'm Brad.
And this is Ministry Chemistry.
Neutron, proton, mass effect, lyrical oxidation, your irrelevant mass spectrograph, your electron volt, atomic energy erupting as I get all open on pow.
Here we go.
Welcome back to another episode of Ministry Chemistry, where we probably will pose more questions than answers. At least we don't mind doing that, right? Like,
No.
That's totally okay. I had a friend say one episode ended so abruptly, and she's like, I had more questions. And I'm like, good. Did you
Ask
talk
them.
about those?
So whoever your friend is,
Did you?
I feel her pain.
Yeah. Did you then go and have good conversations with people that are important in your life?
No, I'm an introvert.
You are. I know. Brad asked earlier, like, what is an ambivert? And I'm like, well, like, they gain energy from both extroverted things and introverted things versus just a very clear distinction.
Still not Mike.
No.
No, yeah, you're totally an extrovert. 100%.
Yeah.
Hyper extrovert.
Yeah. Oh, a hyper extrovert. Yeah. I'm an ambivert. That's what I am. Sometimes it's people that help. Sometimes it's leave me alone that helps. So
So gray.
I know. You don't like living in the gray.
I don't
Amber,
like gray.
Amber is not gray.
All I can think is
There it
311
is.
right now.
There it is. Oh,
And I want to sing again, and I can't.
No, you
'Cause
can't
no-
sing.
You
no one
can,
wants to
just-
hear that. No one wants to hear
We
that.
want to keep
Let's
listeners.
see. Let's
Brad
see what
can
happens when
sing.
Mike sings.
No,
Brad
let's not.
can sing.
Let's not.
For the past few episodes, we've been talking about just balance of life and spiritual rhythms and really just doing a spring check-in. You know, we spring clean, we open the windows, and sometimes we need to take a pause and take a step back and say, hey, how's our life looking from New Year's resolutions to just the everyday, every week, maybe Lenten challenges that you've put before yourself. And so today we kind of want to wrap up some of that conversation by asking a really big question. Two, one is, does what I want to do matter? Right? When we're thinking from a Christian point of view, do I get to actually just have a say in what I do?
I hope so.
But the other one is when you do, or when you do try to figure out what matters and what do I say yes and no's to, how do you do that without burning out? And how do you do that without overcommitting and filling your schedule with just that
Stuff.
with just stuff?
Yeah.
So I'll start with a personal story. I have really been intentional over the past, I'd say 5 years of not saying,
That's a lot of intentionality.
over the past 5 years of
haven't
not
done
using
anything
the
I thought you were going to say like 5 minutes.
nope, 5 years. Really trying to not use the adjective busy. Because I don't want to just be busy. Like, how was your week? My goal has been to not say busy. If I've had a good week that's been hours and hours and hours, like stacked stuff, I'll say it was a full week. Unless it was a busy week. But yeah, okay. You roll your eyes, but
Yeah.
I would rather live full weeks filled with good
How
stuff.
many different
AKA
words
busy.
can I use?
Busy.
But busy implies
Swamped.
busy implies that
Overscheduled.
what I did was throwawayable.
Can I just vent for like 5 seconds?
Yeah, you have a microphone.
Using a different word
What if I
doesn't
muted
make
him?
it a different thing.
It does.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
It's the same thing
Nope.
described differently.
Nope.
It's still busy.
No, that's not true. It's a mind shift. It's a heart shift. Heart shift is Christianese. Total Christianese. It is different. What if I said, would you like this? You know,
The eye roll.
fluffy, light, airy, warm biscuit. Or if I said, you want this biscuit?
Isn't it?
Okay,
It's
first
different.
off,
The biscuit.
you said it the way he wanted.
First of all,
You want
first of
this
all,
biscuit?
We're not talking about marketing here. We're talking about everyday life. I don't say my sink is full of dishes, or I say my sink is full of dishes. I don't say my sink has dishes in waiting. It's the same thing.
Oh, that's a great example. Because dishes in waiting gives so much more purpose to the dirty dishes than I have dirty dishes in my sink. Like, that's way different.
Your accent's terrible.
You have
By
dishes
the way.
in waiting. Oh, I
FYI.
love that. I'm going to start saying that now, too.
I know you are.
What are you doing
and I
tonight?
hate
Well,
it
I have
still.
dishes in waiting. So.
I'm busy.
I have to say no.
Wow.
It
Was
does
that
matter.
English or country?
It does. Yes. See, Brad can't do accents.
Oh,
He
I can.
He can sing.
And I will.
Anyways, so I started saying, yes, my week is full or has been full. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you the psychological reason why. Do you want to know why?
Is that for you or
question,
for other people?
Question. Yeah, exactly.
Me.
That's what I was going to ask.
It
You
is
read
for
my mind.
me. It is for me because I have a person in my life who is really good at unintentionally shaming things. And so when it's just
Is it me?
no, it's not. No. So when it's a busy week, they'll say something like this.
She just said it.
Well, I hope you can take some vacation soon, or I'm glad you could get away, or I hope. And I'm like,
Is that your mom?
and so
Whoops.
moving on.
Clearly,
So if I say I had a full week, I had a life-giving week, I did all sorts of different fun and interesting things. Oh, well, that's great. Oh, the response is different. So it's for me to like not have to be shamed by her. Yes, my mom.
So it's for your mom.
This is not an episode where we talk about the relationship I have with my lovely mom. Love you, Mom. Yeah, your face. That's right.
How my face hurts right now from that. No, I get that. That makes more sense.
So phraseology is important. I think words are
Somewhat.
important. Words matter. What we say matters and how we say it.
yes.
And maybe it is just for my brain shift or, safeguard against shaming from people who love me.
Does that matter to what we're talking about today, burning out? Do the
Yes.
words that we use to describe what we're doing affect whether we're burning out or not?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. You don't think they do? Or are you just asking
I'm
the
thinking.
question?
No, I'm thinking. My face is contorted like Brad's now. I have my thinking face on. So,
Huh?
Because it is that different. So let's use another phrase that's better than about the biscuit. Let's use the phrase when you're pouring into someone versus meeting up with someone versus having coffee with someone. Those are 3 different phrases to describe the exact same thing. But man, the purpose and intent implied by them is vastly different. I'm just meeting up with someone. I'm pouring into someone. I'm having coffee with someone. So you've got casual, informal. You've got intentional and purposeful. And then you've got hipster. I'm having coffee with someone.
you think that's why we attach the word ministry to everything?
Ooh.
But
Like-
Bob Goff says this in his book. Stop calling it ministry and just call it Tuesday. That's what everyone else does.
Yeah,
And it's true.
it is.
But you think
It's
that's
my
why we
job.
do it?
Yes.
We call it ministry because it's more purposeful than just calling it Tuesday.
Not
lunch.
only is it more purposeful, it has validation to it.
Mm.
Like the sewing ministry. You're just getting together to sew, and that's okay.
The parking ministry. We get the name
but
ministries.
parking is a ministry.
The trash collection ministry.
Do you have a trash collection ministry at your church?
No, we don't attach the word ministry to everything. Yeah, we don't do
We
that.
don't pick up trash at our church.
That's what I
But,
thought I was going
you
to
know,
say.
but
We don't
I've-
have people that do that.
But I don't know. Maybe the light bulb just went off because I've always wondered, why do people do that? It drives me crazy. But maybe that's why.
To give it purpose.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because it's
Yeah.
you attach the word ministry to something and it magically becomes more purposeful.
Well, and are there things we, I'm going to say the word should, I know, but are there things we are called to do anyway, should do anyway?
You
It's
think
our,
people are called to collect trash?
Some are.
some are.
Okay.
Yes. There have been people that I have crossed paths with who will follow others around and clean up their messes.
You heard Tim
And-
Hawkins, servant's heart.
Servant's heart is definitely Christianese.
He says that just
But-
means you're good at stacking chairs.
That's okay. Because guess
Somebody's
what?
got to do it.
Someone doesn't like stacking chairs, but is really good at fill in the blank. Is really
Yeah.
good at being the DJ one night at an event because they have the mixer and the music and the sounds for that.
No matter what you do, you have to do it to the glory of God. Whatever you're called to
Colossians
do.
3:23.
There it is.
Whatever
Boom, I
you're-
dropped a reference.
I'm a sanitation engineer. I'm a trash man, but I'm going to do it to the glory of God.
But this is a great example because what if we got to design our own, job titles? Like I want to be Imagineer extraordinaire, or
You
like
are.
Dreamcaster, whatever. And
I would like to be that, but I'm not called to be that.
yeah, but like sanitation, what'd you say?
Sanitation engineer.
Yeah, like
It's like a domestic engineer. It's a
just different than trash collector.
housewife or a husband, husband.
Home husband?
I don't know.
Housewife?
I don't know how you change that.
Is that real? Is that a real phrase?
I was a stay-at-home dad for several years, so yes,
So you were a home
we are
husband.
real. We
No,
are real.
not that. Just
We
the
are.
phrase. I've never heard the phrase home husband. Marshall.
I've never called myself that.
That's for all the
but-
Thundering Herd fans out there.
Oh,
Anyway.
sorry.
He said we are.
No, when you say Marshall,
Marshall.
my mind goes Paw Patrol. So
Oh.
I'm a 3-year-old. So
Paw Patrol.
Paw Patrol's life.
PJ Mask.
Yeah.
PJ. Anyway.
Yo,
So
it's funny.
words matter
Well,
in that.
I'm thinking. So, what we do in the ministry world is very similar. And I've asked you guys this before. Like, does everyone think that way? I asked my pastor, and that was kind of for me an affirmation of a call to preach. Was every time I read scripture, I thought about how I would preach that. How I would put that into a sermon, or how it might be beneficial, how I would word it, into a message. So I'm like, okay, is this affirmation to preach? Does everyone read scripture that way? You know what I mean? Am I just reading it this way in the context of what we're talking about? Am I reading it this way because I want to preach? Or am I reading this way because God has planted that seed into my heart to decipher scripture that way? You know what I mean?
Sure. And so how does that matter in terms of what you want to do versus what you're called to do?
Well, I mean, I think it's, just having the maturity and the understanding to distinguish between those two things. And the other part is, does God call us to what we want to do? Is what we want to do planted within us? There's never been a time in my life where I didn't want to fly airplanes. Why? I would never say that God called me to be a pilot.
But he created you to be a pilot.
But that passion existed within me. We have a student who all he cares about, like his focus in life is he wants to be a nurse, and he's trying to figure out, how does this work out with, being a Christian and serving and stuff like that. But I don't understand that at all. I don't want to be a nurse. Why does God create?
I don't want you to be a nurse.
You know what I mean? I don't like blood and all that stuff.
Well, and so I think when it comes back to that question about the words we use and the way we talk about things, and then the way things are viewed, all of those come into play, because to be a pilot, no one's looking at you going, "Oh, Mike's just a pilot." Because to be able to fly an airplane is kind of a big deal and viewed culturally and societally as a skill set that's very unique.
It's the number 2 most dangerous job.
It's the number 2 most dangerous job.
Behind this one.
And so when we change things like trash collection to sanitation
Behind
engineer,
podcasting, yeah.
when we do that, often it is for another person, like the example of my mom, but it is to say, hey, we need you and you're valued and this is important. And so we're going to change the words we use so that you know that. And so that you're not waking up to just, I did it right there, just collect trash. But that's a very important and vital thing to do.
Absolutely.
Because society and culture will say, oh, you're just a trash collector. Well, that's shaming. That's not okay. So how can we help diminish that shame? Because the job needs done. And guess what? You're pretty good at stacking chairs, and the chairs need stacked. Because if you don't naturally have that quote unquote servant's heart, it's kind of about making it appealing.
Partially. Yeah, I agree.
For something that's not normally appealing.
Let me speak into this. I'm the only one of us who's bivocational.
Yes.
So
Although.
So he's lifting himself up.
Well, there's been times when I'm going to self-deprecate. There's been times when I've struggled with, I love what I do for a living, what pays the bills, which is being a pilot, flying airplanes. But I feel I've been called into ministry. So does what I want to do matter? I want to do both of those things.
And you get to.
I get to do both of those things, but I've been asked the question, I asked myself the question, what if there comes a time when God asks me to choose? Are they in competition with one another? I right now I don't feel like they are. Right now I feel like they one kind of assists the other, and sometimes that varies to which one is doing that. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, my job assists financially to allow me to be able to support my church, both with my time and finances. But you know, the church and what that does for me and the calling does for me helps me be a better witness in my secular job. Sure. So they coincide right now. But I do struggle with, I want to do this. I struggle with, am I straddling the fence, or is God called me to both of these avenues simultaneously?
Well, so the question of, does what I want to do matter? You're looking at it through the lens of bivocation, but let's look at it through this lens. Let's look at it through the lens of, if you are married, does what you want to do matter? Or do you always... Ooh. Are you always second to the person you married? Let's look at it through the lens of parenting. Are you always second to your children's wants and needs?
No.
Let's look at it.
The answer is no.
Look at it through the lens of being a Christ follower of Jesus. So you're sitting here saying both vocations God could have called you to, equipped you to, created you to do both. When does what I want to do get to matter in a world where all those other titles and roles and lenses are a part of who I am? When does it matter, Brad?
When does it matter?
Does it get to matter?
You have to decide that. I mean,
how do you decide that? How do you decide that?
I don't. But it really, I mean, it's like when you wake up in the morning, you can decide that this is going to be a good day. It's a busy week, but I'm going to get a lot of things accomplished this week. I can look at it through that lens. Mm-hmm. So wanting and getting to do certain things, part of that is a mindset. I not only want to do what I do, but I get to do what I do. There were a lot of years where I didn't know what I was going to do. Again, I stayed at home with my kids for quite a few years, and I helped my family immensely in that role, but I didn't feel fulfilled. I felt like something was lacking. And then God called me into ministry in a really strange way. And I ended up right where he wanted me to be. So now I have trouble prioritizing, saying no and all those things, because for all those years I wanted something, and now I have it. And I feel like I've wasted all those years. I want to do. And if I don't prioritize things, then I'm not good enough at what I do for God. Well, he can use anything, clearly.
That's right.
But
talk yourself out of that lie. Good gracious.
Sorry, Lord.
Backpedaling.
I can do that. But it is a mindset. You can decide whether or not you're going to want to do what you get to do.
So that's a great segue into the second question we want to tackle, which is when you do get involved, be it on a volunteer basis somewhere, be it in ministry, be it in a church, be it in your job when you get ultra involved, right? Because there are levels of involvement on the workplace too. You can go in, you can do what's asked of you, and you can leave at the end of the day, or you can take on extra things. You can help others. You can maybe be on committees that help the workplace be a better culture. So when you do get involved, is it all about the mindset under which you get involved that helps avoid feeling burnt out? Or is there more to it than just the mindset and attitude that you approach things?
Well, I'll marry those two questions with personal experience.
Okay.
Sometimes getting involved means you have to do, you start doing what you have to do in order to get to the place where you do what you want to do. Brad and I don't know as much about, how you got to the place where you got to do what you wanted to do. But I know Brad and I have talked about this before. We both started doing what we had to do, what was necessity at the church. And through that discovery of what we wanted to do, I discovered what I wanted to do was something that wasn't even on my radar. If you asked me 10 years ago, do you want to work with teenagers? I'd be like, are you crazy? Why would anyone want to do that?
Because they're awesome.
Yeah, but through doing what I had to do, doing what was necessity, I discovered that calling, and now I get to do what I want to do. So yeah, I would say,
It's not just an attitude of approach, but it's a willingness to take a step when someone says, hey, would you take this step? And then that step could lead to something that you didn't even see.
well, there's a self-discovery to that too, you know, and it probably doesn't feel like burning out, the getting involved, even if it's something that you don't necessarily want to do, because you understand that there's a process to self-discovery.
Well,
you know?
Okay. So in that self-discovery, there has to be a limit, doesn't there? Like, how do you fight the
Sure.
redundancy of, I've said yes to this. So to your point, Brad, I said yes to this. I can't waste it. I can't wait. Like, I've been waiting and waiting. But then you get into it and there's ruts and there's routines and there's a copy paste feel to things. How do you, I think that's the definition of burnout. Like, I'm tired of this. Like, this is not as fresh and new.
You
as it
have
once
to
was.
you have to redefine. You have to rediscover. You have to reinvent sometimes what it is that you're doing, that you're called to do, just to have a freshness that draws others. I mean, what we're all about here is trying to draw people closer to Jesus. And if we're not that, if it gets stale for us, there's no level of polishing we can do to our message from Jesus to them that is going to be attractive.
Yes.
That's it's got to be fresh.
And the beautiful thing about that is it's in every context. It's not just in the church setting, though the church setting should be the most powerful, magnetic place people want to be, because the message of Jesus is what we get to live into, live under, and live for and share, right? But taking it out of a church context, if you are a business owner, you're a company, corporation, and you have a vision and a mission that's meaningful, your people should be rallying behind that and say, I get to be a part of this, right? And maybe it's, I get to do this work that only my brain can tackle. And this company recognizes that and they celebrate that. And the burnout happens when there's a lack of celebration, a lack of affirmation, a lack of acknowledgement. And I would say just a lack of excitement. And we're not even talking people have to be as extroverted maybe as some, you know, but if there's not a gusto to what you're about and what you get to do, whatever degree that happens, I think that leads to burnout more quickly too.
I think for both of these things, it's not a flat line. It's a heartbeat. Like, I go, you know, Brad talked about, we use the Christianese of seasons. There are seasons. There are seasons in and out of the church world. But there's also, like, you know, there's this, okay, I don't have enough. You know, I'm not as involved as I should be, so I'm going to do more. And then you get to that spike and you're like, oh, I got too much now. I'm burning out. So then you let go of stuff. And then you get down to this valley and you're like, oh, I don't have enough again. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's a continual ride of that and just figuring out the balance. And you want the peaks and valleys to be minimalized, but I don't think you ever get to a flatline approach where I'm just enough involved and doing just enough of what I want to do, and balancing that out with what I have to do and not getting burned out with doing too much.
And part of that, I think, is losing sight of the goal.
Purpose.
Yeah. With business, with church, I mean, we've talked multiple times about someone casting a vision. And this is where we want to go as an organization, as a church, as an individual. We want to go there. And we get focused on the day-to-day, and we lose that picture, that ideal, and we get bogged down in the minutia of everything. And
He said minutia.
I know, I love it.
That's for you. All you people that laughed at me when I said seeked several months ago.
Yeah.
And I used minutia correctly. But we get stuck in that, and that's where the burnout happens, is we lose sight of what's pulling us forward, and we get stuck where we are.
That's a good point, because I'm thinking of, there's times when I've been maybe less involved than other times, but felt more burnt out.
Yeah.
Because
know?
you're stuck.
Yeah, just not seeing the purpose in it.
Well, I think
Doesn't matter.
The important piece about the analogy of flatlining is if you're close to flatlining, if you're close to just being dead in the water, I'm stuck. This is just not for me anymore. There has to be an acknowledgement that to come back from a flatline is way different than to come back from a slower heartbeat, right? So your recoup time is going to be longer. Carrie Newhoff talks about that, being burnt out in the church for a while, right? And needing to come back. And the comeback time was significant because of how deep in the trenches of stuck and just burnt out he was.
Yeah.
And so for all of you out there who feel like you're close to flatline or close to burnt out, know that you have the freedom to step out. You have the freedom to restart and be refreshed. But that might not be instantaneous.
Right.
Listen to last week if you haven't.
Yeah.
About saying no.
About saying no. But saying the right yeses in the sayings of no. And then, does what you want matter? Absolutely it does. Because what you want is to not be flatlined and to not be stuck and stale. You want to be fresh and ready and at your best, because when you're at your best, whatever you're involved in is going to be better.
Absolutely.
And that's important. So this week, in your circles, with your people, with your spouse, in your homes, wherever you talk about what we talk about, ask yourself, what do you want? And does it matter? And where are you close to burnout? And where do you need to put that fresh vision, that purpose, that excitement at the forefront so you can shift your brain, look through the lens?
Sure. How does what you want contribute to the rest?
That's right. For this week, I'm Renee.
I'm Mike.
And Brad.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.